So now US President Donald Trump says he's going to double the levies on imported steel and aluminum from 25% to 50%. That's a blow to Canadian producers, for example, such as Algoma Steel. Let's get more from Ian de Verteuil, Head of Portfolio Strategy at CIBC Capital Markets. So he's doing it again. Perhaps it's this phenomenon of going in hard, all guns blazing, and he'll back down. What do you think of the latest move?
As I tell everyone, if you're not confused, you're not paying attention. It is. I think there is a strategy underpinning what the United States is trying to do, but I think you couple that with a very volatile president. I think that's what we get. We get this back and forth. Whether it's the art of the deal, Andy's anyone's guess, but certainly he has shown a preparedness to be more aggressive. But all the way through, he has backed down. That's where we hear this new term, the taco trade, which is Trump always chickens out as we go forward. I do think, though, there is an extra element of this that comes in. That has to do with the fact that last week they lost a court case in the Court of International Trade in the United States.
The U.S. court.
U.S. court,
exactly.
Yes, but it's a U.S. Court of International Trade. And then there was a stay put on it. But what it does look like is there's a reasonable chance that some of some of the legality behind some of his tariffs are going to be challenged, and it would pull it back into Congress. So I think, this is me projecting here, that the decision to move steel and aluminum and double the tariffs was to say, I still have a lot of tools here. Mm-hmm. So you are the countries that are negotiating with me. Don't think you get to wait me out here. So I think it was more, there are some elements that I still have that I'm incredibly powerful on. And the steel and aluminum is what's called a Section 232. Very powerful, very solid, been tested for years and years since its first administration. So some of them very strong. Steel, aluminum, and autos, he has a lot of flexibility.
Let's get to these tax changes that he's proposing. Some of them would potentially see foreign investors who hold U.S. assets paying much higher taxes on their return from those U.S. investments if their home countries don't back down on, for example, the digital tax.
Yes, it's another real indication here that the U.S. is prepared to use its might and throw it around and hopefully force, in their opinion, force the rest of the world to effectively match their tax code. That's really what they're trying to do here. Is they're saying your domestic tax policy may be impacting some of my companies in ways I don't like. Therefore, I will be prepared to go to extreme lengths to stop that. So you're absolutely right. Buried in this House bill, which now goes to the Senate for markup, and then ultimately the goal, hopefully, is to get it to the president's desk on the 4th of July, really says that companies that are based in these countries with these digital service taxes and global minimum taxes, if you're based there and you have subsidiaries in the United States, we reserve the right to escalate taxes over a period of time in quite punitive manners. It could be as high as 50% tax rate on those things.
And you brought up the other aspect of this. Canadian companies that have subsidiaries in America would face a much more punitive regime.
Exactly. Yeah. Subsidiaries and branches, and as well, individual investors, yourself and myself, if you own U.S. securities and you're receiving dividends, they would step up the withholding tax on countries that have these offending tax policies, and these withholding taxes largely would not get rebated. So, in my opinion, it's no longer withholding if you don't give it back to me. So there are many elements to this. It's quite an aggressive move by the U.S. Treasury. As I say to everyone who thinks that the Secretary is the adult in the room, Scott Bessent, how do you like him now?
What do you think? Will Canada back down on the digital tax, do you think?
I do think Canada will back down on the digital tax. The total amount collected over the next 5 years is about $7.5 billion spread out over 5 years. I would think the impact on subsidiaries and branches of Canadian companies and the pecuniary impact of the withholding tax that would not be rebated, I would suggest is multiples and multiples of that number. So I do think Canada will back down. I would also say Canada, in a lot of ways, was a bit of a hanger-on to this. This was largely an EU initiative.
I think the French were a leader.
French, the Germans, the UK. Just to make sure you're clear, this famous deal that was signed in the White House with Starmer on the phone, in Starmer's press release after he said the deal was signed, he said specifically he got to keep his digital service tax.
Oh.
And now the rules have changed 2 weeks later. So the point being, it is a very unpredictable world. I think it's one of the reasons I still remain cautious. I know the technicals call for the market to go higher. We've had a nice bounce. From my point of view, I think there's a lot of moving parts here. We have an administration that's very unpredictable. To me, I want to make sure if I own companies, I have very clear visibility into the operating profile. I want to have dividends, so I get paid to wait. Probably have a little bit of gold stocks just for in case, and maybe carry above average levels of cash.
It seems amazing. Well, apparently Wall Street is worried about this proposal to discourage foreign investors from buying U.S. securities.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the argument or the situation that foreigners have dealt with. If you do factories outside of America, you're going to face tariffs on getting into the United States. And if you build factories in America, Trump may change the tax laws so you pay unusually high levels of taxes on your U.S. operations. So what do? It really is quite a bizarre assortment of ideas come together. Every single one of them, I think, in isolation, there is validity to it. The problem is when you overlay all of these together, I think it causes businesses, domestic businesses in the United States and foreign businesses, to be very cautious on deploying capital, because you're not really sure what the lay of the land is going to be a month, 2 months, 6 months from now.
Would you be wary of Canadian companies that do get a lot of their profits from U.S. operations?
Yeah, I think we've already started to see a number of them do that. I would go back to the question you asked me previously, which is, do you think Canada will back down? I believe Canada will back down on this. I don't believe the digital service tax was an underpinning of tax policy. So I think Canada, in my opinion, will back down on this. So from our point of view, I'm not worried. The UK, France, and Germany are all in on this digital service tax and the minimum global tax. It's going to be interesting to see how they respond, particularly with trade negotiations ongoing.
Because they're multinationals. The European multinationals will be telling governments, come on, you got to do something about this. Multinationals with big US investments.
Yes, so that's absolutely true. I would say they have been, the French, Germans, and the UK have been at the leaders with the OECD on encouraging this to go along. And this is not something that came along out of nowhere. This has been going on for 5-6 years, and the former U.S. administration under Treasury Secretary Yellen was actually quite supportive of what the OECD was doing. Remember,
the minimum tax.
Minimum tax. But remember, what we have is these global companies, which have operations all over the world, are arbitraging tax rules and paying some of the lowest taxes out there. The concept is let everybody pay their fair amount of tax. The United States is saying, yeah, but a lot of them are our companies, so why don't you change your tax rules?
Yeah, it's gone on for decades, really, hasn't it? The multinationals playing that game.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks very much, Ian.
Nice to be here.
Ian de Verteuil, Head of Portfolio Strategy at CIBC Capital Markets.